All right. Good morning. I wanted to go live and talk a little bit about the National Association of Realtors lawsuit and what it means for buyers, for sellers, for realtors. Kind of talk about all the things that have changed. So, to sum it up, I'll give you a summary right now if you don't want to watch this 5 or 6 minute video. Nothing has changed. Commissions have always been negotiable. They have always typically been the way it was set up was that the listing agent, let's say myself, went to go list a property. I would, let the seller know this is my fee. It's 6%. I split that fee with the buyer's agent's broker. Typically, 3.5 to me, because I have upfront marketing costs and upfront expenses. A buyer's agent doesn't. So I take a little bit more to pay for those expenses. And sometimes the property doesn't sell, so you're out that money, which buyer's agents aren't out that money. So I explained that to a seller, and they signed the listing agreement, let's say for $1 million, and the commission is 6%. So $60,000 of that would be split between the buyer's agent's broker and the listing agent's broker. And at that point, with the seller, we would look at comps, comparable properties that have sold. And all those comps that we're looking at have commissions built into it. So they have commissions built into these properties that have sold. So it's not like, hey, we don't have to pay commissions anymore. It's just kind of changed the process, the verbiage, things like that. So let's flip it around. Let's say I'm representing a buyer. The biggest change in this is that now we are required to have a buyer broker agreement. In the past, a lot of agents did not use these. They just, you used to be able to look at the multiple listing service and see what the buyer's agent would be compensated. So if my property was online for $1 million, they would see 2.5%. That is what the buyer's agents would get paid. Now that's gone. Buyer's agents don't see anything. Essentially, they have to call the listing agent. They would call me and say, hey, Kurt, I've got an interested buyer in this property. And there's two ways it can go about. Either the seller can offer the buyer's agent commission just like normal, or they cannot offer a buyer's agent commission. It's their choice. But if they did, it could be 2.5%. So the buyer's agent would call me and just say, what are they offering? And I would say 2.5%. Now, this is where things change. So a buyer's agent, like I said, is now required to have a buyer broker agreement. What does that mean? Well, in the past, basically, buyer's agents would work with buyers and not have any agreement to actually get paid. Kind of sounds crazy, right? But that's how it worked. So now I have a buyer broker agreement, and when a buyer wants to work with me, I go ahead and fill out the agreement, and I say, hey, my fee is whatever my fee is. You can set your fee to whatever you want, 3%. Let's call it 3% to make it easy. And that gets you to work with me. You hire me, basically. Now, we go down the road and we find this house. It's listed for $1 million. And I call the agent and I say, hey, look, I got a buyer interested in this property. I'm curious, what's the seller offering, if anything, towards the buyer agent commission? And the listing agent says, we're offering 2.5%. Okay. So the seller would pay 2.5%. And then because my fee is 3%, the buyer would be required to pay the additional 0.5% as a closing cost. So you're talking about $5,000 is what it would cost the buyer out of pocket to work with somebody that they really want to work with, or they have absolute confidence in that, and what I like to remind buyers is, do you think I can negotiate my fee? Do you think I can get $5,000 off the price of that house? Usually you can. As a good negotiator, someone who does coaching, someone who has been in the business over a decade, who has a lot of experience with negotiation tactics. And I'm a student of this because I think it's very, very important as a salesperson to be able to negotiate everything. Everything is a negotiation. Typically, there's no problem at all. Absolutely. I know you're the guy. I know you're worth $5,000. Get that fee off the price. Awesome. I'm going to work. So that's one scenario. The other scenario would be, I go to a listing, back into a listing agent. Let me put my listing agent hat on. I go to a listing. The seller wants to sell for $1 million. I explain the same thing. Hey, look, my fee is 3.5%. Okay, cool. Seller says 3.5%. And I say, typically, the seller will also offer something to a buyer's agent. That's up to them. That's up to them completely if they want to do that. And it's always been up to them. It always has. They can offer them nothing. And it doesn't have to be a percent. They can offer them $1,000 sell the house, $5,000, $10,000, $100,000. They could offer them more, and in the past, if you had a house that was very hard to sell, you would want to offer more compensation because an agent gets paid more to sell it, right? And I don't think that we're going to get around that. I think that there's always going to be people who are going to look out for their best interest, not their client, as bad as that is. But the average realtor sells 4 houses a year. And if you're talking about a 1% difference on $1 million house, that's an extra 10 grand over 4 houses. That's $40,000, which I believe is about what the average American makes. They're making more. They're making $40,000 more if they sell these other properties. So back to the seller. Seller says, I ain't paying no buyer agent. Okay, that's your choice. So buyer's agent's driving down the road with their client. They see the house. They call me, the listing agent. Hey, I'm just curious, are you offering any buyer's agent compensation? And I say, no, the seller is not offering any buyer's agent compensation. So that buyer's agent has to go back to their buyer. And again, everything's negotiable, right? Everything's negotiable. So this can go a few different ways. Buyer's agent goes back to the buyer, says, hey, look, you hired me and my fee is 3%. So for you to buy this house at $1 million, my fee is $30,000. I want to be upfront with you. Is this a deal breaker? So that's the conversation that the buyer's agent now has to have with the buyer. And the buyer's agent might say, look, I don't have 30 grand to pay you. I've got 10. So let's go back to the seller and let's try to negotiate your fee into the price, which this has been done since real estate started. The seller offers a fee. It's negotiable. The buyer broker agent and the seller's broker agent, they get together, they negotiate the price on the house. And typically it's, somewhere we're giving and taking and this and that. And then, it might come down to, hey, look, we might have to give like $1,000 up to make this deal work. Can we do it? Can we make it work? Maybe, maybe not. Some agents negotiate that. Some agents, absolutely not. That's their standard. It's like going to an attorney and hiring them and asking them in court, right? Like in court, they're working for you. Hey, look, I don't really have the money to pay you. Can you negotiate this as part of the settlement? So you can see where this gets very complicated very quick. So you have to be, the agent, myself, have to be very clear with your clients how this all works, because it can get very complicated. And I think that people have, made it really complicated, but it's not. Either you're getting paid by the seller, which is normal in the past, or you're not getting paid by the seller, which in that case, your buyer would have to pay you. Or if there's a difference between what the seller is offering and what your fee is, then the buyer would have to make up that fee difference, whether it's 1%, 2%, 0.5%, whatever it is. So that's the conversation you have to have with your clients. I don't really know if a lot of agents are actually doing this and educating their clients, or if they're, if people don't know, but it's really important because I want to know that my client knows my fee. And I think a lot of agents are scared when they get to an appointment and the seller says, "What's your fee? How much are you charging?" And I charge 6%. And for some reason, a lot of agents hear that, like, "What's your fee?" It's a question. And they're like instantly like, "Oh my God, these people aren't going to hire me. I'm too expensive. I'm not worth it," and all that. And they start to get this like, voices in their head. I don't know why. And they're like, "Well, I could do it for like 5%. And the people are like, "Oh, I was just curious what your fee was. And now I just got a better deal." But is it a better deal? Because if your listing agent is taking 3.5%, now you're only offering 1.5% versus 2.5%. And most agents in our area are offering 2.5% to 3%, somewhere in there. That's kind of our, normal area of commissions. But like I said, they're always negotiable. They're always, they're different. Everyone's different. So I want to do a quick video about it. If you have questions, if you have comments, I'd love to hear if you haven't experienced with this yet, if you love it, if you hate it. I think it's great. I think it's really forcing buyers agents to step up and show their value. Because it used to be, I'll wrap this up, last thing, I can get my license today and write a contract today. Like, this is 5 years ago, right? Or 6 months ago, before the 17th, when this law changed. I can get my license, my brand new, get my license, write a contract, and make the same amount of money as someone who has been in the business for 30 years. Now, how does that make sense? No other industry would a brand new person make the same amount of money as someone who has been doing it 30 years, unless the person who's been doing it 30 years is just completely terrible. But I'm sure they've learned a lot in 30 years, right? That experience is worth something. Their knowledge is worth something. And no other industry is like that. So now you have agents who are going to have these buyers agents are going to have a big gap. You're going to have agents who are like, "Look, I've been doing this a long time. I'm the person who knows this area. And yes, I am expensive because of that." If you want to go with a brand new person who doesn't know the area, who doesn't have the experience, who might not be able to even negotiate their fee, are you getting the same value? And I think that's what I want my clients to know, is that there is a big difference in value between agents who have been doing this 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. I'm over 10 years now, a decade of experience. It's a big difference. And if they don't know that, it's up to us to explain that and to make sure that they know what they're paying. Last thing I want to do is go to the closing table and my buyer, on their side of the closing statement, it says they're paying me $30,000 and they didn't expect this. Oh my God. Like, you didn't tell me I had to pay you 30 grand, right? Like, that's not a good surprise. That's not a happy client. So this is a conversation you want to have day one. Because that is, if you call any professional, a plumber, an electrician, an HVAC company, a lawyer, I don't care who it is, a doctor, and you need a procedure, typically you're going to ask, how much are we looking at here? And can I afford this? Because it is part of the buying process. And we want to make sure we put our clients in the best position possible to buy the house that fits their needs the most, right? And I think I think the perception out there is also that agents make a ton of money, right? Like we're filthy rich selling $10 million houses. Well, I'll tell you this. Those $10 million houses, there's like 5 of them that sell a year, right? And there's like 8,000 agents just in our area, just in this little Santa Rosa Beach, Destin market. So there's $10 million houses and 8,000 agents. So most agents do 4 deals a year, and their price point is usually under $1 million. So let's do the math. 4 deals a year. We'll call it $1 million. 2.5%, 25 grand a deal times 4. That's $100,000, right? It's pretty good. Then you have a broker split, right? That agent works for a broker. Keller Williams, Coldwell Banker, Scenic Sotheby's, Compass, they all have splits, right? The broker gets paid. It's actually the broker's money. And then the broker pays the agent based on their split. How much business they do, how experienced they are, all those things factor into your split. But let's call it 50-50. If you're a newer agent, it's 50-50. So of the $100,000 you're making in gross, now you're down to $50,000 that you're actually taking to your bank account. And then of the $50,000, you got to pay taxes, right? 35%. So we're taking 17 grand off of the 50. So we're at $33,000 before expenses, before gas, car, insurance, house payment, utilities, kids, daycare. So the people who are making a ton of money are very, very, very few. Very few. Most agents are struggling. Most agents don't know how to generate their own business. Most agents will not have these hard conversations with their clients. And that's how I think realtors get a bad name, is because it can be a surprise to a lot of clients if the realtor does not take the time to say, hey, look, this is the process. This is what we're looking at. I just want you to be prepared, right? Because, buying a house is a huge investment. Probably the biggest investment most people are going to make in a lifetime. And now prices are $1 million plus, $1 million plus. Still kind of crazy when I say that. My first house, I think, was like $200,000. I thought that was crazy. I was like, I can't believe I'm buying this house. There's no way I can afford it. And I still haven't bought $1 million house, by the way. I live in a $500,000 house. It's nothing crazy. So, but I pride myself on helping my clients get what they need, not stress them out on the budget. Because if you're stressed on your budget, you're not even going to love it. It's like buying $1 million boat and you got to worry about making the payment on this thing that you can't even use it. You're too freaked out about it. And, so with my buyer clients, I talk about price, location, and condition. What are your 2 most important things? Because you're probably not going to get a great location, a great price, and a fully up renovated house unless this is a market turn and, there's been a bubble and you can get a fire sale. It ain't going to happen. You can get fully upgraded. Sure. But you're probably not going to have a super great location, which means you can probably get a really good price. You can get a great location and it might be updated, but you're going to pay the price. So whenever I'm speaking with a buyer, doing a buyer consultation, I really want to focus on the expectations, because this market is changing every day. Every day it changes like the stock market. People ask me how the market is. It's like asking how the stock market is. Houses sell every day. Closings happen every day. Comps change every day. Price per square foot changes every day. Every house is different. Every house has different things that you have to take into account that affects the value of other houses. Pools, location, upgrades, bedroom bath combinations, square footage, and obviously the prices. So a great agent, if you ask them, how's the market, they're probably going to be, they might be sarcastic and just say, I have no idea, because it changes every single day. And unless you say, hey, Kurt, tell me about 123 Main Street in Santa Rosa Beach, I have to look up data from this week. And every neighborhood, I mean, you're talking, there's thousands of neighborhoods, thousands of data points. But that's why you hire someone who has that experience. If they tell you, oh, the market's great, you should definitely buy. Well, we're thinking about, oh, the market's great, you should definitely sell. Interest rates are coming down. There's tons of buyers. Be careful with those types of agents, because an advisor should say, let me go back. Let me look at the data. Let me make sure I'm giving you accurate information so you can make the best decision. This is your real estate. It's not my real estate. And that person should be a trusted advisor to you and your other team. They should be working with your CPA. They should be working with your attorney. They should be working, if you have any wealth advisors, if you have, anyone who's managing an estate or a trust, they should be working very closely with that, because these, real estate transactions can change dramatically how your landscape looks, as taxes and trust and all these other things. So I hope you got some value out of this video. I wanted to lay it out there. There's a ton of information on it. You can Google it, NAR, lawsuit summary. There's a lot of videos that kind of explain it a little bit more in depth than mine. Mine's pretty, layman terms. But I wanted people to know about it who work with me. And I think it's important to talk about. And I think it's important to work with a professional who knows how it's going to work and is going to be able to educate you. Because there's a lot of agents who are clueless right now, and they are not educating their clients. But thanks for checking it out. If you have any questions, you can leave it in the comments. You can also email me or text me. My info's on my website. And appreciate you watching my video today.